Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Infinite Abilities Podcast. I am your host, Nick Yerhart, and we are here to encourage each other to find our own unique abilities. Let's go. All right, everyone. So today we have Paul Zohab, and this man is incredible. He has already helped me so much. So what Paul does is, in my eyes, he's a communication expert. He has a book called Marriage and Communication, Recipes for Love Life. This book is set up like a recipe book. So you don't have to read the whole thing at once. You just look for the recipe that fits the situation or the problem you're facing now, and then read that section, which is really awesome. Paul was nice enough to give me and my business partner Kyle a session with him, a little coaching session on how to communicate with each other. Because, I mean, as you know, it can get difficult communicating with business partners who is also my best friend, and it gets difficult. So, if we don't communicate correctly, one of us is going to get mad or upset, and then the conversation goes nowhere. Now, with Paul's tips and tricks that he has taught us, we are able to effectively communicate our problems and get to a resolution, so then things don't get dragged on over and over. And it is just incredible. So, Paul, can you tell us, about yourself?
Well, about 33 years ago, I started out as a domestic violence counselor. I had a brand new degree in counseling and education from the University of Virginia. That's in Charlottesville. And the first people I served were the at-risk youth that were struggling to succeed in this case, a middle school. And it wasn't long before I understood that they had a lot of trouble succeeding in school because they were struggling to survive at home. I mean, one individual, they have a DuPont factory in Waynesboro, Virginia. And his parents were on opposite shifts. You never really saw them at the same time. If dad was home, mom was at work. If mom was home, dad was at work. And he was responsible for taking care of, being responsible for his two younger siblings. It's not a recipe for success in schools. That's why he basically was at risk. Another thing I learned was that there are very few resources in the realm of domestic violence. In that era, we're talking about the early 1990s, the police wouldn't enter your home unless invited in. Observation of domestic violence was not enough for them to come into your home. And when domestic violence was obvious, the victim was responsible for pressing charges. And they're in a very compromised position because they're a victim of domestic violence and they're dependent upon their abuser for support, for instance. So it was a complete mess. And I decided I would become a domestic violence counselor. And for a year or two, I offered classes in domestic violence to perpetrators both in Waynesboro, Virginia, and in Charlottesville. And along the way, I realized, why don't I prevent this rather than treat it after the damage is done? Why not? So basically, I began my travels to becoming a marriage and communication coach and counselor, and being a chaplain along the way. Mm-hmm. Here we are 30 years later. In the last 12 years, I've probably helped 2,000 couples heal, renew their marriages. I say that either they'll, at the end of the work they do with me, which is 5 sessions of an hour and a half each, they'll either know how to be together or they'll know why not, with no regrets. It can go that way. Mm-hmm. In 5 sessions, they'll learn the skills, the insights, and best practices for a marriage that grows to last a lifetime. And that's a brief synopsis. That's it. And I can help anybody, even by Zoom, from Europe to Canada. So I truly enjoy the work I do. So that's the end of the commercial part of our meeting here.
Well, that's awesome. It's good to know why you got started, how it all started. And like for me, you coached me and Kyle a couple of days ago. And one of the biggest things that really stuck in me right away was how often I would say, I feel like you, dot, dot, dot.
Ah,
And you taught me to change that to, it seems like one of us, dot, dot, dot. And I know that that's going to have a huge impact on how I communicate with anyone that I encounter. So thank you for that.
you're very welcome. There's a few things you mentioned in passing. Is that many of us live a life where you make me feel, or even I make me feel. You could be the source of that sentence. Makes me, which means you're not at the source of your life. Something makes you. You're not free. Something makes you feel, makes you angry, makes you disappointed. And that's a trap because when you are in a makes you world, we are not free. We're not the source of our life and being. So the antidote for that is leaves me feeling. Instead of
Mm.
makes me feel angry, these circumstances, which might be you, leaves me feeling. I'm at the source of my feelings. I source me. And I can be choose happy or sad or angry or annoyed. It doesn't matter. I am at the source of me. I am free in a way that makes me a victim of circumstances. Um, so one of the things I will interrupt when I'm listening to my couples is, no, nothing makes you. It leaves my partner feeling. It leaves me feeling, and then we can go to work. Because if I'm at the source of my life, well, I'm at the source of my life. Nothing influences my reality other than me. That's just one little piece that I offer my couples. Um, basically, well, let me start with a personal anecdote or two. The bottom line is that at children, when we're 5 years old, 12 years old, previous marriages, we develop interpretations and coping strategies to help us get through it. Sometimes even as young as 2 years old. In my case, by the time I'm 5.5 years old, I knew that nobody cares what I want. We moved to a different part of New York City, a new school. After 2 months in my first school, my mother walks me to PS 89, and I'm sitting in the auditorium there in a fold down plywood seat, many of us may remember. And then she walks out the back door. And here I am in a new part of the world, in a new school, surrounded by people I have no idea who they are. And I draw the conclusion as a very brilliant 5.5-year-old, nobody cares what I want, which had repercussions. Among other things, I wrote off my family because they don't care. I made it very difficult for my sister, who was 3 years younger than me, to connect with me because, well, she's the fault. I'm feeling this way. She makes me. And it even to this, not too, I had my 26th anniversary 2 days ago. And it was very difficult to let my spouse know what I wanted for a present. Why is that? Because, well, she doesn't care really, so why even ask? Until she got very frustrated and said, well, find something you like for your birthday and that's your gift. She gave up. Because 60 years earlier, my mother left me at elementary school. On some level, it's completely absurd, but it's completely understandable. Because at age 5 or 10 or 12 or previous unsuccessful marriages, we develop coping strategies. But why would I forward a coping strategy developed by a 5-year-old now that I'm 75 years old? Literally 70 years later. Well, that's a long time. And we all have these. For example, a couple I saw not too long ago. Growing up, her father, Ned, never said that he loved her, ever. She was never appreciated for any positive action or accomplishment she had as a child, ever. And so, given the intelligence of an immature, cognitive, intellectual human being, she understood I'm not good enough. And with that point of view, she gets it every day. Not good enough, waiting to happen. If she's 5 minutes late, oh, not good enough. If she gets feedback from her boss, not good enough. If she gets into an argument with her spouse, for sure, not good enough. It's called confirmation bias, for those who like fancy words. If you listen for it, you'll find it. And then she goes to sleep, not good enough, only to wake up not good enough the next day. Who does she marry? She married an individual who grew up knowing that it was a requirement for him to be aware of the emotional needs of the people around him. And when he was aware of the emotional needs of the people around him, he succeeded as a child. And that is who married not good enough. The day they put a ring on their fingers, not good enough was marrying, I have to be aware of the emotional needs of the people around me. And that, until recognized, completely runs beneath the surface of their marriage, which is kind of why they came to me, because they were living the lives of two 12-year-olds rather than two adults. And one of the things we get to do is to choose new language that gives us new life. I could go on for hours, but basically, the world has no language. Trees don't fall, birds don't sing, waves do not crash. Fall, sing, crash are all words that human beings add to their experience of being alive in the world. Something happens, and we label it. Now, there are many reasons for why this happens, maybe not for today's conversation. But the really exciting news is that if you can understand that you've been interpreting the world in some way, living a life given by that interpretation, then what's really exciting is you can change your interpretation to one that gives you more life access, more return on life, ROL, return on life. So you could live a life given by, oh, they're critical, judgmental, or you could live with someone who's thoughtful. Which one gives you more access to life? Someone came to me, and he was living for 40 years inside of, I'm unfixable. He was convinced that he was unfixable. I said, how about swapping that for, I have things yet to learn? And at that moment, his life completely transformed. He went from being locked into unfixable to, I can still learn something. He was about 68 years old, I think. So the words we use frame the experience of our being alive. This is an example of what Martin Heidegger, a German philosopher of the last century, said, language is the house of being. Language, our language, the words we speak, is the house of our being, how we experience the world. And you can live, well, they're critical, judgmental world, locked into, or you can live, well, they're thoughtful and deliberate. And you get a brand new life, a brand new marriage. And over the course of the work I do with couples who come to me, couples and families, they get to learn what they've been locked into so they can get freedom from that. Going from I'm not good enough to I'm sufficient, I'm admired, I'm acknowledged, I am worthy person. And it all is in the language we choose. Perhaps you have a question. I could just go on. I mean, just I can go. But any thoughts you'd like to share, Nick?
Well, I agree with you 100%. We get to choose the language that we use. Now, one thing that me and you talked about before is the way that we're taught in schools isn't very good. And then our parents, they just have their language that they use passed down from generations.
Yeah.
So it takes someone to, you know, want to know how to communicate effectively and for them to do the research, maybe talk to you in order for them to change that in their family and with everyone around them. So I know that you have a lot of good tips on changing that language. So I think it'd be awesome for you to share that.
To continue with Martin Heidegger, the German philosopher's language is the house of being, we can look at those distortions left over from childhood and rewrite them. Could be early as 2 years old, actually earlier than that.
Mm-hmm.
He was the first-born male in an extended family, and he got a lot of positive, oh, what a cute little boy, he's a boy, he's a boy. Not only the sexism, but that's kind of there too. And for a year and a half, he was the only boy in that extended family getting all this positive attention. That was his norm. Think about an 18-year-old, right? And then his younger brother was born. And all of a sudden, the attention he was routinely receiving was split between him and his younger brother. At 18 months old, he noticed that. You don't notice much at 18 months old, but he noticed that he'd lost attention.
Mm-hmm.
What he did for the next 40 years was act out. He grabbed any attention he could possibly grab, positive or negative, it did not matter. He acted out. He blurted out things. He did things out of place and out of time just to get people's attention until we realized what was going on, and he could rewrite that old code. Not good enough is a popular one. I don't matter. I haven't got friends. I'm bad in math. Everyone who's listening here, and I do mean each and every one of you, have these little memes running beneath the surface of your life that frame the life you live. Language is the house of being. So I imagine two different houses of many. In one house, you're sorry, blame me, it's my fault. I'm guilty of that, and I'm ashamed. Maybe you're one of those people. However, I invite people to move to a new address, a new house, in which I apologize. I am responsible. I am accountable. I intend. I anticipate, and I plan. Very different world. In that world, you are at the source of your life because you are responsible. You plan. You are accountable. You have reasonable to anticipate. As contrasted with the other house of being, is where people are sorry, I'm ashamed, guilty of that, blame me, it's my fault. And by the way, shame is a life sentence. What do I mean? Well, something happened and you felt ashamed or blamed. And the next time, 20 years later, that happens again, you'll feel ashamed and blamed again. So shame has a very long half-life. But apology, responsibility gives you a path forward. You're not stuck. You can be accountable and intentional. Please do not use the word try. Try belongs to the first house. Trying has no relationship to results. You can't take responsibility for something you tried. And when you try, it could be the end of the sentence. Well, I tried. End of the sentence. However, if you move to this new address, please do. I intended. Now, you may not get the results you want, good, bad, or indifferent. You are the author of those intents. And then we can talk about it and come up with a new way to get to where we want to go. But if you try, forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
Please, if you notice yourself saying, well, I tried, please stop yourself. I mean, when I trained some of the teachers of the Tucson United School District, children would come up to them saying, Mrs. Jones, the dog ate my homework. But now Mrs. Jones has a new response. Yes, I hear you. And by when will you have your assignment on my desk? This is teaching from integrity, not try. If any of you have children here, do not default with try. I tried, Mom. I really tried really hard. And some of us as parents said, well, okay, it's time for dinner. Sit down. We let the try become part of our children's lives. And why? When you can say, yes, pick up the toys, sit down to dinner. Integrity. Integrity is underneath much of what we're seeing here.
Mm-hmm.
And one more model. I have lots of models. For those of us in relationships, at home or at work, think of yourself and your relationship as a bubble. A bubble. Visualize a bubble. The benefit of visualizing our lives and relationships as a bubble means we can see our boundaries very clearly. People say boundaries, but I'm not sure they're really using it in the best way. But with a bubble, you can distinguish I'm inside, everything else is outside, and I get to choose what I let into my life. And so in a relationship, a marriage, or significant relationship, we can then ask each other, what I'm about to do or say belong in our bubble or not? If the answer is no, stop. If the answer is yes, with the cooperation and agreement of my partner, keep going. And if you're not sure whether this new idea or advice we're getting from outside is appropriate for us, we get to communicate with one another such that we know we are the owners of our bubble and the life inside of it. It's also true that we live in an uncertain world, but inside our bubble, we are the designers. We are the source of our relationship. And if someone comes up to you, well-meaning or not, say, listen, I think you should do this. And you get to say, yes, I hear you. Thank you for letting me know. I'll bring it up with my spouse. There's a missing piece I haven't talked about yet, but basically, yes means I heard what you said. We are connected. And the and lets me steer into the bubble or leave it outside the bubble. Yes, I hear you. Thank you for letting me know. I'll take this under consideration. Let's change the subject. We do not let anything in our bubble that doesn't belong there. And we get to be aware that we are inside our own bubble as individuals with our wishes, desires, hobbies, activities, pastimes. And we get to acknowledge that I get to nourish myself, do the things that I like just because I like them, because that nourishes my bubble. And it seems to me, another word we'll come back to later, that some of us sacrifice pieces of ourself for the sake of the bigger bubble, to survive, essentially. And this is a very, very bad idea, because when you don't nourish yourself, you haven't got much to share with anybody else. If you like to go golfing, go golfing. If you like to go to book clubs, go to book clubs. And make sure in your calendar is your bubble as you live within the greater bubble of our relationship, along with your children, because they have young bubbles. It's a useful metaphor and gives us access to answering the question, does what I'm about to do or say belong in our bubble or not? Nick, I'll give you a few words of advice. We got more to do. But
Yeah, no, this is incredible. And, for the listeners, I'm letting Paul do most of the talking because I know that he has a lot of advice that will help a lot of us. So, Paul, you've got the floor. I mean, this is just so helpful.
well, you've heard me mention the words yes and it seems.
I was going to bring that up.
Our task now, from now on, this moment on, anyone says anything to us, we begin our sentences with the word yes. Why is this? Yes means I'm responding, I am not reacting. Reacting is great when the light turns red. And in human relationships, reaction really has no place. So we respond. Starting our sentences with yes means we're engaging our intelligence and not reacting as many of us tend to do. Number one. Two, we're focusing on what we're listening from you. You know you have been heard. I have received your communication. And we have a relationship, all with the word yes. Consider if you were a real estate agent and your clients wanted a $100,000 house in $1 million neighborhood. You could say all kinds of things, but now on you say, yes, I'll show you everything that's available. You will pick the one that suits your life. Yes. They know you're listening. They know you heard what they said. And they know you're supporting them at what they want for themselves in their life. Yes. We'll look at everything that's available. You will know which fits you. It's also the same thing when you sell a car or anything else. You're yes first. It's a can opener of communication. It could be planning a meal for breakfast. And how about breakfast, says someone? You can, yes. And how about scrambled eggs? You could say, someone might say, it's time we talked about our finances. And your answer is yes. Let's pick a time. We'll sit down and talk about it. Let's have it Sunday afternoon. Yes. I would say it's magical, but it takes us away from a world of no and but to the world of yeses and ands. Yes also is a nice first aid, not cure, first aid for angry, frustration, outrage. Someone comes up to you, Nick, and says, Nick, you're a total a-hole. What do? Well, from now on, you say, yes, I hear you. Tell me more. I want to hear everything you have to say. By the way, this is a gift all by itself, because many of us tend to believe that no one's listening to us. So with this in mind, you might say, why are you saying that? I'll say, yes, and I'm interested in how you got there. Why are you being so awful, says someone to you, Nick? You say, yes. When you defend yourself or explain, you really only feed the fire. You leave them feeling justified in their anger, and they're not listening, which is actually the most significant piece. If they're not listening, why defend or explain? It's really a waste of time. But a yes connects you to them. Yes means you heard them. Yes, you're interested in them. And you can get a cup of coffee, sit down, and we'll discuss this. I want to hear everything you have to say. This is important. I want to hear you. I would say about an average of 3 yeses. You've deflated the steam in their anger and irritation, and we can begin to aspire to a conversation that makes a difference. And since you're connected, you have a relationship. That's a plus all by itself. So yes, and the next word we get really friendly with is seems. Why is that? Well, if you're listening, you can hear that what comes from my mouth has the sound of truth. We tend to speak it truthfully, or sounds like the truth. What you and I get to be responsible for is that when I say something that sounds like the truth, your listening goes to, is it good? Is it bad? Is it right? Is it wrong? Do I agree? Do I disagree? And if what I say to you doesn't match what you anticipated, remember, or believe, we'll stop listening. We'll stop communicating. And we'll start arguing about whose truth is truer and whose reality is most right, who's wrong. Still, no communication, no listening. And that's why we need the word seems. Seems is the signal that what I'm saying is an interpretation. Remember, I talked about interpretations earlier on?
Mm.
We can discuss an interpretation. We can argue about a truth, which is a waste of time. So it seems to me we bring up the past is an opening to discussion of interpretations, how I see the past, how you see the past. We can say, seems will get us a discussion where truth will get a no, a but, and an argument. Seems helps us bypass the truth mechanism, a truth app that runs all the time. Because when someone says something to you, Nick, you evaluate automatically whether it's good or bad, right or wrong, agree, disagree. Seems opens up discussion. Yes and opens up communication. And the word and can be on its own as well. A couple came to me, and he had invited her to hop on the motorcycle and go to the county park. She said no. They got into an argument. But with yes, ands, and seems, she says no. And he goes, and rising inflection. And I need half an hour to finish my hair. Then I could go. That gets him to the park. Or he says, let's go to the county park. And she goes, yes, I need another half an hour to finish my hair, and then we can go. With a yes and an and, they get to the park. This is a true story. With a yes and an and, they get to the park. With a no, they get stopped. Another thing I'd point out, and it's my excitement of the moment because I like to come up with new ideas. The word and, A-N-D, seems to me, there's that word, as being one of the most important inventions of human beings. Why is that? Well, an and can connect things, dogs and cats, peanut butter and jelly, boys and girls. It connects objects. It connects thoughts. I think let's choose gold, and I think blue would work as well. And it connects thoughts in a way that but does not. That's a slight, we'll come back to that later maybe. But and, for me it's exciting. I just love these ideas. Forgive me for being really passionate. The and opens up the future in a way that no does not. No ends a conversation and creates the space for the next conversation. Brain is like mind boggling, but my mind boggles my words, as you might have noticed. So a no doesn't leave room for alternative futures. It's a no. An and allows us to discuss what's next. It opens up a completely brand new space that you can fill with anything in a way that a no stops things. Now, minimum when you get into the world of no, add an and after it. You go to the hardware store and you say, I'm looking for a left-handed wrench. And they say, no, we don't have those. And you go, and I may have a right-handed one, and led to a sale. No led to disappointment or an argument or alienation. There's really not much use for the world no. I'd say anywhere. Perhaps that's maybe a child starting to play with matches in the basement. You go, no, when safety's involved. But out in the world, from now on, when someone doesn't give you the response that you are looking for, you go, and when you do it to yourself, I'm no good. I'm unfixable. You can add an and to yourself. And so you can create your own future by anding at yourself. And it seems funny, but the fact is that and creates space in a way that a no does not. It may be that some of your listeners feel locked in to some of the interpretations they made growing up with the physical deficits they have. And since you are now at the source of your being and yourself, live your life, create something new. Why would you be locked in that I am not capable? Why would you want to be locked into no one likes me? Why would you want to be locked into I'm not good enough or cheating happens, infidelity? No closes the cage and opens it up. And you get to be at the source of your experience. Just one more piece and I'll let come up with something. When we listen carefully out there in the world, on TV, we hear a lot of I have to, I need to, I must, I ought to, I should, I've got to. I have got to get going. I need to go to work. I have to go shopping. I should take another path in my life. When we listen closely, you may hear an or else. There's a consequence if I don't do what I have to, need to, should, ought to, and must. Or else. When we or else ourselves, we lock us into a world of we're not free. We live lives given by obligations and circumstances. We are not at the source of our life because we have to, we need to, we should, and we must. We're not free. We're living a life reacting to the circumstances of our life by have to go shopping, need to go to work. Listen for this. It's all there. The good news is that it's easy to get out of that trap. The trap in which you are not free, you have no choice, and you're stuck with having to survive. The easy way out is you switch an O for an E. In that moment, you go from a got to life to a get to life. Think about that. In a nanosecond, you completely change the basis of your being. Because in a get to life, you are at the source of you. You're the driver. You have choice. You have freedom. You have possibility. You have opportunity. And you can change your mind for no consequences because there's no or else in that mix. So, those who are listening, if you hear yourself saying, well, I have to, or maybe one person in your life, your partner, hears you say, I need to, your task, your role is to go, have to, need to, should, with this rising inflection, which is a signal to restate what you just said from a have to a get to. I get to go shopping. I get to go to work. I get to leaves you at the driver's seat of your life. You might have a teenager, maybe yourself, where do I have to do my homework? Well, a parent now says, a get to parent now says, no, you do not have to do your homework. And the teen goes, what? Parent says, no, you don't have to do your homework. You get to do your homework. What? Well, if you have to do your homework, it just takes longer. You may forget. You'll do the minimum amount to fulfill the assignment. You will learn less. And if you're lucky, you have a C or a D. If, beloved child, you get to do your homework, you'll get to it sooner. It'll be done sooner. You'll get more out of it. You'll have an A and a B. So really, it's up to you how you live your life. There's an old joke where he says, I hate Sunday school. The kids don't like me. And his wife says, well, you're the principal. You get to be the principal. You get to go to work. Now, you don't have to like your work. You don't have to like the people at your work. You don't have to like your career. But since they hired you and they pay you for this, you get to go to work. Performance is unlimited. If you have to go to work, you can hear. You listen to people speaking. You can hear the have to. If you have to go to work, some percentage of you, sometimes a huge percentage of you, is at a beach fishing somewheres, hiking or running, or do something that's far more fun than your current occupation. Well, if 10% or 20% or more of you is not at work, what does that do to your performance, to your productivity? And don't fool yourself. The people around you can feel it too. I was just here for the paycheck. One of the directions I'm taking in my career is to bring these skills, yes, ands, and seems, to business and enterprise and commerce. When an employee brings their marriage to work, it costs work and them performance and productivity, which influences the bottom line. If they have managers with poor communication skills, which happens a lot, the manager says to the employee, this is the new policies for our company. And the employee doesn't really know how to stop them because they're not listening and they're not understanding. So the employee says, yes, remember, yes, I understand the first two policies. I'm not clear about the third. Could you say more about that? And the manager, in return, can say, well, it seems to me that our unit is operating under some false pretenses. Let's look at that together and look at our bubble of our enterprise. We're stretching the metaphor of bubble of marriage to a bubble of a team. Your team has a bubble. People have their roles and responsibilities in teamwork. And so our agreement is something doesn't work. We say, yes, this may be something for us to pick up at the next staff meeting. The manager hears. The next level of this is that managers and staff members with poor communication skills spend more time in disputation than collaboration. Leadership gets stuck. Human resources feel stuck because they're not producing the results intended by the leaders and the stockholders. So one of my initiatives going forward is to think of the enterprise as a bubble, corporation as a bubble. And then we can say, what ways of being in action can we introduce to our enterprise that leave every employee, staff member, management, and stakeholder with access to increased liveliness? I want to teach communication skills throughout the entire organization. That's the direction I'm moving in because I want to maximize yes, ands, and seems throughout the entire enterprise and the universe. Yes, and let's look at that together. And if someone gets irritated or annoyed, you say, yes, let's sit down, I'll have a cup of coffee. I see I have something to hear from you. Yes, and seems. We get to, we don't got to. And we think of ourselves, our relationships, and ourselves as a bubble with integrity or lack of integrity. And then we have something to talk about. So we still have about 20 minutes left. I can go in many directions, like personality types and love languages, but what would you like to hear next, Nick? Because you've heard a lot of that already.
Yes, and it seems to me that if we just take these, 4 words that we can change in our vocabulary, it
Mhm.
can significantly improve our communication with anyone. Not just our spouse, not just our close friends, but at work, out in public, everything. So this is huge.
Servers at a restaurant. How can I help you? Says the server. Say yes, and I'd like some extra napkins. It's like
Mhm,
yes, and I'd like some more ketchup, whatever it is. I encourage everybody who's listening to start your sentence with yes and feel that life flows. Arguments disappear. You don't have to make an argument longer than it takes to say, yes, this is important. Let's sit down.
mhm,
A world with a lot of kindness and listening, connections. And you get to raise your children like this because get to parents raise get to children who someday will be get to adults. Now that's the longest game. A little bit of a sidebar. One of my concerns is that all too many of our teenagers feel obligated, compelled to say yes when they really know they should say no. However, in that moment, they say two 16-year-olds, a wonderful age, by the way, they want to belong, they want to be accepted, they want to be popular, they want to be in love. And the hormones of their body are raging at full pace, and they want to get pregnant or make somebody pregnant. All at the same moment. And you have the prospect of your best friend or someone you want to be a best friend, to have a relationship or be in love with. And in that moment, they come up with an idea. You know, let's do this thing. We'll be back by 2 a.m. It won't cost much, and we'll have a lot of exciting fun together with all our friends, says your best friend, significant other. And you know it's wrong for you. You know your parents would never agree. And you feel stuck. You want to say no, and you feel obligated to say yes. But now with yes, ands, and seems, which is part of the curriculum I propose for high schools, the teenager need not be stuck longer than it says, yes, I hear you. It sounds exciting. And I'd rather do something else. The yes and lets them take control of their own next moment. In fact, for all of us, a yes and keeps us at the source of our lives. No one can hijack your reality unless you let them. Don't do that. Someone says, I think it's important to believe that this is the way the world is. And they expect you to agree with them, or else. But now, since you are in charge of your life and next moment for the rest of your life, you say, yes, I hear you. I'd like to hear more about that. Let's talk about that. And they'll go, what? You go, yes, I want to hear more. You don't defend yourself. You don't provide alternative interpretations of reality. You don't let them enter your personal bubble unless you agree. Unless you agree. And there's a long term damage. If you make believe you're a female teenager, I don't want to pick on females, but it's common, and we see a lot of movies about this. Once you begin surrendering a piece of yourself for a relationship, because you want to belong, you want to be accepted, you want to be in love, when you say yes, when you clearly want to say no, your bubble springs a leak. It gets transparent, thinner, maybe broken altogether. And 5 years later, when you're now 21, 25 years old, you've already done this once or twice, surrendering pieces of yourself for the sake of something outside of yourself, which you want desperately for yourself. And that's a recipe for disaster because some hot guy, beautiful woman, you're going to run into them in a concert or a bar, and you go, oh, hot, beautiful, and you may let them in, and they turn out to be assholes. Pardon my French, but narcissists get into you. They can spot the holes in your bubble. Sorry, I know I'm passionate about this. A narcissist has radar that picks on the holes of your bubble. those parts of your life where you have surrendered something about you for the sake of something else, and they get sucked into your bubble. If it turns out that you figured out that you're running with a narcissist, leave. There is no cure. According to literature, there is no good cure for this narcissist who will suck you into their world and cost you your life in the hope that they may change, in the hope that they may understand. There's no cure, not yet, anyways, for a full blown narcissist. Leave as fast as you can. Because the more pieces of you you give up, the less you are to yourself and to anybody else. Bottom line, if you're giving up yourself for the sake of something that's not you, leave. We want our children to grow up to know who they are and who they're not, with high integrity bubbles. And then we as parents of children who have grown into adults can be confident that they won't let anybody in unless they agree. That may be one of the biggest lessons of childhood for teenagers and adults. Do not let anybody into your life unless it makes sense. And if you're not clear, talk to your mother and dad. They'll give you some advice. Get to life, parenting, at work, in marriages. Before we shift to understanding yourself as personality type and love languages, we have enough time for that, I think, or at least to begin the conversation.
Yeah.
Anything you'd like to point out or have me re-emphasize?
Yes, I love this so much because I'm a business owner. I'm also a coach. So for me, your practices are going to help me become a better coach. And it's just amazing because one of my mentors, he teaches a lot about sales.
Mm.
And one of his number one tips is always agree. And with what you're saying, using yes and or yes, I understand is a way to agree instead of disagree. So you keep that conversation open.
Well, starting with agreement may be felt or perceived as a manipulation. If you keep on agreeing without providing some value, they'll know you're just trying to sell them something.
Yep.
Their entire industries, the advertising industry, is based upon convincing us that we are less so they can sell us more.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that. But if we say yes, yes and does not belong to manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes and belongs to partnership, teamwork, and mutual honor and respect. So a tactic is to agree, but I don't think we live a life given by tactics, given by choice. A model I invented just about a week ago, in fact, less than a week ago. I'm actually getting it trademarked. I am getting it trademarked. Is the concept of return on life, ROL, similar to ROI. In the world of business, we return on investment. You can look at for return on investment. And I'm thinking, what if we looked, is my relationship, my job, my marriage, my career provide me with return on life? Do I feel energized and vital? Do I have access to more life with this interpretation, for instance, with this marriage, with this amount of skills that most of us don't have because schools don't teach us how to communicate or maintain high quality relationships? And you know when you're stuck, when your life is at a low point, that you might consider depression, is life sucks, basically. So think about ROL, which can be return on life or return on love. And if you're not getting a significant return on life, it may be time to take a new direction. Um, and to go back to the enterprise, if the enterprise is conceived as a bubble, the enterprise, leaders of the enterprise, the managers, the staff, and the employees, human resources managers can look at what's the return on life for working for this corporation. Are you here as an obligation, or employees come here as an opportunity? And as within the purview of leadership, to reformat their enterprise as someplace where people have access to life and a paycheck. And we might want to know that our employees bring their marriages to work. We might want to have structures in place for them to meet the needs of their relationship outside of work. So when they arrive to work for us, they're all here. Full performance, high productivity, and that's how you would increase the return on life within the body, the bubble of a corporation. Just inventing the phrase ROL opens up a new way of thinking about the relationships of the people within and the ways of being a corporation or a marriage. People come to me with lacking of communication skills because they never learned it in school. You can look at a curriculum of high school, you will not see communication skills or relationship skills. And we can look at our parents, who at the best were nice, great people. But my parents were teenagers in the 1930s. They went into college, around the early of the 1930s during the Depression. And their models for relationships and communication were vastly different from what we have today, a century later. So credit where credit due, they're good, loving people. But they were living in a society that had a different way of looking about relationships and no concept of bubble whatsoever. And that's under good circumstances. But if you grew up in a family where your parents were screaming and yelling at each other and they divorced by the time you're 5, now a 5-year-old has a certain level of intelligence and they draw conclusions about the nature of the world from watching their parents, their teachers, their preachers, their coaches, and they put together their bubble. Yuck. Maybe a really yucky bubble. But they had to do that. They got to do that because that was the concepts, the experiences, the circumstances they grew up in. They didn't have another world. They couldn't even imagine another world. That doesn't happen until about age 13, by the way. So they're stuck. I'm not good enough. Cheating happens. Just a matter of time. I'm bad in math. I have no friends. I'm not good enough. I expect to be abandoned. I have to raise myself. I have a couple I saw just the other day. No parents around. Divorces, and she was abused by her stepdad. Now think about the worldview of someone who basically had no sane emotional support growing up. I could say more, but just imagine if you're one of those people who grew up in chaos. You're not limited to that. And I want you to know that you're not limited to the experience of a 5-year-old. Your marriage need not be two 12-year-olds duking it out while pretending to be adults. Because in life, we are born in a relationship. We'll die in a relationship. And between those two moments, we communicate. Would it not be appropriate to learn how to do that? Not live in a world where 50% of first marriages fail? And our teenagers have to say yes and compromise their sense of self by saying yes when they really mean no. I mean, that's a good place to end. I think we're basically towards the end of our hour. And I thank you for listening to all this. And I invite you to contact me when you want to. We've done a lot of download today, and you've done some uploading today. But when you want to install it in your life, that may take a coach and a counselor, because that's a whole nother environment. So please contact me, marriageandcommunication.com, if you can, and get copies of my book, Marriage and Communication Recipes for Life, which is directions, not chapters to be understood. Just follow directions, get your cake. Only the cake is your life. And thanks for listening to me all this past hour. And I have lots to say. In fact, there's a whole area we didn't touch, actually. And maybe for the future. Nick.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing everything with us today. It's just amazing that you give your time to help others, and you already helped me so much. I can't wait to dive more into your book because this is going to improve every relationship that I have, not now, and that I will have in the future. So thank you.
Anywhere from home to work.
Yes.
Am I getting a return on life? the answer is you're in the negative, get help, get going.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Don't sink into the realm of depression and suicide,
Mm-hmm.
because those are symptoms of lives that don't work, plus a little brain chemistry. So till our next time, maybe we'll talk about love languages and personality types, how to apologize if you want to create another opportunity.
Yeah, that would be incredible. And I do gotta ask you one more question before we go. My slogan is your abilities are infinite. What does that mean to you?
Well, it opens up the space. In what areas of life have I tolerated or been resigned to some disability, some what apparent deficits in your personality? Um, you get to be extraordinary by adding an and. My sister-in-law, who is now passed at age 69, she had significant cerebral palsy. So, and she struggled and she didn't settle for anything for her entire 69 years. Extraordinary. And where are you in your life? If you need someone to be with you as you restructure, reimagine, revision your life, you might want to, I could help you. But, there's just one of me. But if you're like, I'm stuck, I need out of here, I'll just hand it you till you get an answer.
Yep. Yeah, I agree so much. And one thing that really flipped my life is the moment that I stopped saying I can't. And anytime that came up in my head, I changed it to how can I? And that completely changed everything.
Or what's next?
Yep.
New
Yep.
future, new you.
Yep.
What house of being do you choose to live in? Where might you want to move to?
Yeah. Just keep the door open, change everything to and
And
instead of or.
what a magical word. And
Mm-hmm.
it's raining. And a flat tire. And you know, I'm having
Yeah.
a date with a hot person. And I want to
Yeah.
watch TV. And be an and to life.
Yep. All right, Paul. Thank you again. This was incredible.
Yeah. You know where I am, marriageandcommunication.com.
If you enjoyed this show, please go ahead and share it on your Instagram story and tag me in the Nick Yerhart. Also, go ahead and share it anywhere else that you see fit, because the only way that I can grow this is by you guys sharing it. I don't sell anything on here. I don't have any sponsors, so let's just get it out there by word of mouth and help more people. Alright, everyone, remember, your abilities are infinite.